those were necessary. They were necessary for them to allow themselves to be vulnerable enough to tell me that, hey, we're not getting the support that we need to do this job. We're not getting the Spanish. We're not getting these things. Maya, was able to be vulnerable about the fact that the district was going to move her. Mm-hmm. And going to completely uproot her from these kids and uproot her from this whole thing and put her in a completely different demographic. Especially with that in that school, there's a majority Spanish speaking at home, and she speaks Spanish fluently, and so there was a lot of successes that were happening, but because of the how long she's been there, she was going to be moving. They were going to move her, and so that all of these things those vulnerabilities, I think for me, they were necessary. That it was there's a human component that's not unrelated to what we were doing here. It is related, but it's not. Good.
So the piece of advice for this crew that's observing us right now is you've got to take some time to build a relationship if you're going to make any progress. Mm-hmm. Is that fair?
I think it is very fair. Yeah.
Successes?
I think for this past year, the moments that stood out to me were with Marina, Jesse's para. One was doing the non-traditional character unit where the teacher comes in role and engages with the students. And she wanted to be La Tortuga, who there's this book where there's a turtle who in the ocean, and they are almost strangled by, I think, plastic or something, and it's all about recycling. But she really wanted to be La Tortuga, and she got together this whole costume, and I just had never seen her so engaged in character, and she was so committed, and they had wanted to do it during the center time, so it presented some challenges because you had to just meet the kids where they were at, and it just required some nuanced skills, and I just was so proud of her because she just went full force. And I think in the past I felt like she always just timidly got into character, and I think that was a big moment for her, seeing that she could do it and she was successful, and she had students who were right there with her and were trying to help her and save her and show her how to recycle, and she stayed in, it was all in Spanish, and Marina stayed in Spanish because I think she was more comfortable speaking in Spanish anyway, but I think that really propelled her, and then the next lesson that we taught, the gorras, the caps for sale lesson, and leading into it, we were just really intentional I was intentional about trying to give her strategies to help her be confident about using the Spanish and not being afraid of kids answering in English. Because I think it's they answer in English, they feel like that's a failure. And I'm telling no, that's not a failure. You're speaking in Spanish. They're responding to you in English appropriately. That means they understand the Spanish. And the more we practice and model Spanish, little by little, they keep gaining language. I don't know. Oh, but she just, again, I felt like that success with La Tortuga enabled her to be that much more committed to, actually the next two lessons she taught, I felt like she just really grabbed onto it, and it felt like she was being a lead teacher as opposed to a para teacher. And I think that, I don't know if it was a success on my part, but I think it's a culmination of all of because they had 3 different teaching artists, this one group, and their willingness to keep trying and just slowly adding those skills. So I just happened to be the person present. So my advice to future teaching artists would be, well, actually part of it is be patient and know that each teacher is gonna arrive at their moments of understanding at different times, and it doesn't mean that they're not taking in knowledge or growing. It takes time. And like what Julio said, when you do see those moments of success, like really praise them, because those are going to be that next level up, right? Like they might take a while to get to that next level, but like when you see that moment, embrace it, encourage it, and do whatever you can to foster so then they feel it. Yeah.
That reminded me of a para that, Cecilia. Oh my gosh, Cecilia. She's been around since the beginning. And she is some kind of amazing. She had a new lead teacher this year, Noelle. But Cecilia would prepare her lessons because Noelle decided to give Cecilia a chance to do the Spanish speaking. They're both bilingual. But Noelle wanted Cecilia to do her Spanish lessons. And Cecilia would come with so much preparation, and she would email me, and she would have the photographs plasticized, and all the words, but lots of them, like 10 or 12. And I was like, okay, Cecilia. So I would get there before class and say, this is awesome. Let's narrow it down because this is a bit too much. She was like over enthusiastic, right? Which made me really happy because she really wanted to please and be there. And the thing that really broke my heart was that she ended up wrangling the kids. When we were doing a lesson, she would be leading it maybe and with me. But then when some wrangling needed to be done, Miss Noelle would step in and Cecilia would have to wrangle the kids.
When you say wrangle, you mean regroup?
Take them apart, regroup, take them apart and talk to them or whatever.
Okay.
And step away from the lesson.
Got it.
What kind of broke my heart a lot of it.
So much is that like so much for teacher and role?
Yeah, kind of.
Because you had to step out a role in order to...
Well, not even so much for teacher enroll, but so much for the para being able to teach the lesson.
The whole way through.
Yeah.
The whole way.
Or maybe we were doing a team lesson together or whatever, because we shared the para with the lead. So that kind of was difficult. But then we had a discussion at the end of the year and stuff, and she knows she's capable, and she has all these lessons, and she asked me to send more lessons to her, and I know, it's sweet when you get that kind of feedback from a teacher, because you know that they want to continue on. So I think that was my successful moment. And then just another one was, I mentioned before, a child who is nonverbal but speaks during drama. Huge. Aha moment. So.
You know what the teachers tell us when we run the focus groups with them? That one of the biggest paybacks for them is when they're reflecting with you and you honor and comment about some of the things they were doing that worked and even some of the things that didn't work, because they indicate rarely do they have that adult conversation with another experienced teacher about their work. And the fact that you all were able to parrot back, and when I say parrot, meaning you had the data, and you could use their words in sharing with them what you saw, and you could identify a particular child that did something, and in many cases they said, I'd never heard that before.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
So I guess what I'm going with that is the level of training that you all have had, the level of detail that you're able to provide through your observations, even if you were scoring the rubric or what have you, but it's the conversation that you had, back to the relationship piece, that was one of their biggest paydays.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That is awesome to know. Thank you very much for that, because me personally, I have a little bit of insecurity about the reflection and how to conduct it and how to, with some teachers. I mean, some teachers are really easy. But so thank you very much for that. And I want to say something else. I think going into the new year and our new grant going on, I think that's a very important thing. If you could mention that to all the new teaching artists that are coming on board, before we even start or whatever, just my suggestion, that everyone knows what you just said.
Well, what I would suggest is You now know that.
Right, and we tell
You
them.
tell them.
You tell them.
You don't need an outsider walking in the door saying, "Okay, here's what you need to do."
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is our experience. Here's what we've gained. This is our understanding.